There are many paths to security, but which one do you pick? Is it the left, the right? Well, the CIS critical security controls may be the one for you. Stay tuned to find out.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hello, everyone, and I know you're like, wait a minute, critical controls. I don't know if I'm into this, but Daniel and I were talking before the show. I think I'm actually going to enjoy this a little more than originally there. And we're going to be talking about the CIS critical security controls, which is a fairly large document for prescriptive, or what did you say, prescriptive?
Yes, I think I would.
Prescriptive.
At least a guideline.
Right, guidelines that, hey, if you do these, you're going to be in a better position than most, right?
That's exactly right. That's what this is all about. Because I like how you put it in the opening of the show about how there's many ways to get to the mountaintop of security, but which one do I choose? And if you read the CIS security controls, let's take a look at their website really quickly so you can see where to go. And right here, it is at CIS, or I guess it's cisecurity.org. And then I'm under cybersecurity best practices, which is where I find the CIS controls, where you can go to download this document. But what this document plans to do, or attempts to do, is to give you some real world, dyed in the wool, tried and true practices that have worked throughout different organizations as far as security goes. And I think what I got Justin on board with was, I was reading an article about the effectiveness of it, and somebody, I forget what I was seeing, but they said that 85% of security threats could be mitigated by just following the first 5. And I'm like, that's a large amount, right? So that's its aim. Its aim is to, and again, throughout the document, they use the terminology of the fog of more, which is totally apt and really works out for this when you think about it, is we can get analysis paralysis when it comes to, well, do I do this or do I do that? I have so many different things that I need to do. Where do I begin? What are the basics? What's more advanced? What do I even do? So if you're kind of dropped in, or you just have never really thought about your security posture at all before, and you decided, you know what, security is probably a good idea, CIS security control documentation can really help you out with that. And even if you've done things, maybe you want to use this as a reference guide, or these are things that we should do, and make this a part of your security policy as another document to look to for reference and guide, right? So that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to be a guide to help the professionals have a prioritized set of things and concepts that you can do to help with your secure environment. It'll guide you through that fog of more, and aims to be usable, scalable. So if you're a small shop or large enterprise, this should work no matter what you're at. And also, if you're in an industry that has regulation or compliance, it also aims for that in both like enterprise, industry, or government as well. So that is what I guess the purpose, right? What if you're asking yourself, what is the purpose of us using the security controls? That would be it right there. So hopefully that helps us get started on why we're even looking at this, and what's the relevance of it when it comes to the exam, or just us as security professionals. Hopefully that answers that question.
Now, this seems like a fairly large document, and 85% taken care of. That seems a pretty hefty lift. Did this come from just like a single individual, a group of individuals, or was this a collective thing between multiple organizations or kind of verticals?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's get into some of the background of where this documentation comes from. And Justin is making a really good point about, if it was a single person just saying, here's my opinion on this, and even if they were a well-known security practitioner, having a single point of view is probably not just, it's just probably usually not the best way to go, okay? So this is a conglomerate of different people with different backgrounds, from different cultures, different types of industries, organizations, governments, you name it, and from all over the world, that come together and they contribute and collaborate to create this documentation. And honestly, from what I've seen of it and what I've used of it, it is very good. It does cover all the bases and all the basics. So if you have not settled on a standard or a framework already, this could be a great place to go. And even if you have, it doesn't hurt to get another set of eyes, right? I think that's why the exam kind of presses it, because it is kind of that all-encompassing thing. It kind of covers from soup to nuts security, which is what I like about it. And the background of the thing is from everywhere. These people have come in and not just like, well, my opinion would be, I think this is a good practice. Aren't we all agreed? Yes, that's a good practice. It is that, but it's also, it's my opinion because we had this happen to us. And had we have done X, that would not have been possible. And another person from another organization or government or wherever says, you know what? Had the same thing happen, and you are absolutely right. We implemented this, and it stopped that from being a threat any longer. So it is the stories, it is stuff from the trenches, real life, real world scenarios that happened, had to be mitigated and protected against, and are effective. Those people are coming and sharing and collaborating together. So it's what gives a lot of credence to this documentation. So there's the background of it. Hopefully that helps you out. There's a lot of different places that this comes from. Experts from all over: retail, manufacturing. I wrote a list of them. Healthcare, education, of course, government, and defense. Right? This is about as disparate as it gets, and about all the major industries in the world that you could think of. They all come together, share their perspectives, create the documentation so that it applies across the board and is effective no matter which field you might find yourself in.
Now, Daniel, one of the things with some of these frameworks or these prescriptive measures is you go, yeah, it's a great idea in theory.
It is that.
But then implementing them, like actually putting them into play, becomes, you're just like, whatever, I give up. Is that the case here? Is this fairly well kind of encapsulated of what I need to do, or here's some good things to consider?
Yeah, another pro to this document is that they do exactly what you're saying. Is it's not just a here's a bunch of stuff and apply as needed. They do kind of give you a methodology. They say, here's a systematized approach to working with this. We try to lay it out in a way that makes sense, is cogent for doing cybersecurity. Let's take a look at the document. I jump to a different tab. Here it is. You can download it from the previous website. I highly recommend you reading it. It's only 60 pages. I say that's fairly wordy. And it will take you a good day. Like if you sat down with a cup of coffee and decided, I'm going to read this document, you should be able to bust through it in a few hours. But you'll spend a lifetime, or at least a while, actually assimilating all its practices and properties. But some of the main stuff, and I'm just going to jump to the page there, which is page 4 on this document, is the what they call, did they have the name for it? These are the controls, right? So basic, foundational, and organizational. So here we have the basic, and there are 6 steps to basic. Foundational has, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6, oh, it's a lot longer. A lot of stuff under foundational. But we're not going to jump into each one of the subtopics for each set of controls. We also have organizational. Let me just give you a rundown of what each one of these pillars is meant to accomplish. So with basic, these should be implemented for every organization. These are meant to be cross-platform, cross-organization. Doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is. You should be doing these things, and everybody can do these things. Can't see any good reason why not, right? So that's the idea, and essential for cyber defense readiness. So if you want a good posture, a good cyber posture, you have to start off with these basic things. If you don't, you can leave some gaps, and of course, we know what happens when there are cracks in the system. Somebody finds a way, right? Let's jump into foundational. These are technical best practices. So this is where you're probably going to maybe jump around a little bit more, because if you don't have some of the things, but I think it's still meant to be, again, cross-platform for the most part. But depending on what you're doing, you should be able to just walk straight through this document and see those things. It should provide clear security benefits to each one of these practices. So things like, if malware defenses is what you're on, if you're looking at C8, then you go, oh, malware defenses. I don't need that because I run Linux. That's a lie. Yeah, right? Doesn't matter what you're running. There's somehow, some way malware might be able to get into your system. You need to find those ways and mitigate against it. But if I'm not doing that at all, if I have nothing to guide me in that process, I'm going to find myself with a crack in the armor, right? So those are the foundational. And then organizational, these apply to the processes and people that are involved in cybersecurity, which is typically everybody in your organization. Everyone at some point has a touch to cybersecurity. And whether that be somebody at a front desk somewhere just checking people in and greeting, they still have a computer account, they still log in, they have access of some sort. We need to give them good security awareness training. And you'll see that is the first one right there, right? Implement a security awareness and training program. Application software security. That'd go towards you, Justin, right? I mean, do you see a lot of bad, I mean, I guess it's happening because we have buggy code out there, but just security mindedness as a philosophy. Do you see that in the dev world?
So the people that we work with, we tend to have here.
Yeah,
we're a little better at it. It
Yeah.
tends to be more security focused. But by and large, my interaction is, even if they are doing those things, it's not what they talk about. It's not the forefront of their mind. And because they keep cropping up, it probably is not being implemented. I know when I went through a recent pen test and I talked to the security team and they're like, oh, so how would you remediate for the OWASP top 10? And I was like, oh, I do these things. They go, you knew what they were. And I was like, what do you, hold on, were you surprised that I knew what they were?
Why is this taking you by surprise?
Which makes me think that that's usually not on the top of the list. I've also read some things, a lot of times when freelance people take jobs, if security's not outlined in the job, they just don't do it, like plain text passwords and databases kind of thing. So I don't know if it's like a money thing or if it's I'm just trying to get things done fast or what, but it doesn't appear to be like the focus up front when you're developing applications.
And that totally makes sense. It's not their purview per se, right? It's not something that they're thinking about, how can I make this work and what kind of cool technologies can I use or development techniques could I employ to make this thing really cool and fast and efficient and do what we want, and not so much, well, is it secure, right? So we have to constantly be beating that drum. Incident management and response, penetration tests, and red team exercises. So those are the things that are going to cover the organization, things that should be done with the people and the processes that we have in place. That's the three core or security controls that they recommend. And of course, I'm not going to read this document for you. That would be crazy. But it's a free download. I'll put a link in the learner resources. Click, go, enjoy. It was very good. I was highly impressed and very surprised at how applicable and usable this document is. Not too much, not too little. It seems to be that just right type of porridge. So there you go. That's the CIS critical security controls. We are currently on V7, so if you don't get V7, you get V6 or something. There is a statement in there about versioning and why they update and so on and so forth. But that should be the current one, I believe, is available as of the recording of this episode. But Justin, we've gone through them. We've seen its purpose, its background, and its implementation.
Well, Daniel, this is one of those where you definitely want to utilize these documents, right? You want to just kind of keep them on hand, if you will, because if they're usable, that makes me happy. It's kind of like those hardening guides that I found out about, and I was like, these are good. So I'm going to keep this around, and you should as well. Speaking of keeping around, you should stay around for more GSEC coming your way. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Signing off for IT Pro TV, I've been your host, Justin Dennison.
I'm Daniel Lowry.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.